Why we sabotage happiness. Understanding self-inflicted suffering. Have you ever noticed how sometimes, just when life feels calm, we somehow find a way to stir the waters? The job is going well, relationships are steady, health is decent, and yet, we poke at the edges, pick a fight, overthink a decision, or convince ourselves it's too good to be true. It's almost as if we're allergic to peace. This isn't just bad luck. This is something deeper, a quiet, invisible habit in the human mind, the tendency to sabotage our own happiness. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Why would anyone choose discomfort over peace? But here's the truth, it's rarely a conscious choice. Self-inflicted suffering is often a pattern running in the background of our lives. It's the silent program we didn't install, but somehow inherited, from our upbringing, our past experiences, even from the culture we live in. We are taught, sometimes without words, that joy is dangerous, that contentment is suspicious, that if things are going well, something bad must be around the corner. Think about it. Have you ever been in a good relationship, only to suddenly start doubting the other person's intentions, even without evidence? Or maybe you finally achieved a goal you'd been chasing for years, but instead of enjoying it, you felt a strange emptiness, as if you needed to move the finish line further away? This is how self-sabotage sneaks in. It shows up as procrastination when you're close to success. It appears as picking unnecessary arguments when things feel stable. It hides behind the thought, I don't deserve this. But why? Why would our own minds work against us? One answer lies in familiarity. The human brain loves the familiar, even when it's painful. If you grew up surrounded by chaos, uncertainty, or criticism, then peace and joy might feel uncomfortable. Your nervous system may interpret calm as unsafe simply because it's unfamiliar. So, without realizing it, you recreate the chaos you once knew, because in some twisted way, it feels like home. Another answer is control. When we sabotage ourselves, we get to be the ones who pull the plug on our happiness. It's almost like saying, if something bad is going to happen, I'd rather cause it myself than be caught off guard. This is a form of emotional self-protection, but instead of protecting us, it slowly erodes our well-being. And then, there's worthiness. Deep down, many of us carry hidden beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not meant for lasting happiness. These beliefs might not show up in our daily thoughts, but they influence how we act. If you don't believe you deserve happiness, you will unconsciously push it away. The real tragedy. We often don't realize we are doing it. We think life is just unfair or that we are unlucky, when in reality, part of the storm is coming from inside the house. So, how do we break this cycle? The first step is awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. Start by asking yourself, do I tend to create problems when things are going well? Do I feel anxious in moments of calm? Do I believe I truly deserve happiness? Just asking these questions can reveal patterns you've never seen before. The second step is learning to sit with peace. At first, it might feel strange, even boring, to not have drama in your life. But this is where growth happens. Calm is not the absence of life. It's the foundation that lets life flourish. Third, challenge the old beliefs. When you catch yourself thinking, this won't last, or I don't deserve this, pause. Ask, is this the truth, or just an old story I've been carrying? You might be surprised how much of your inner dialogue is just outdated programming. And finally, practice receiving. Happiness is not a prize you have to earn by suffering first. It's not something you'll get once you're perfect. It's here, now, in the quiet moments you let yourself enjoy without guilt. I've learned this the hard way. There was a time in my life when I felt uncomfortable if things were going well for too long. I would overcommit to projects until I was exhausted, or pick apart a relationship until it broke. I told myself I was just pushing for better, but in reality, I was running from stillness, because stillness meant facing myself. The moment I began to notice this pattern, everything shifted. I started slowing down, letting things be good without rushing to the next problem. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart. In fact, it started to feel more like home. So maybe that's the quiet truth. Peace isn't something that happens to us, it's something we stop running from. If you recognize yourself in these words, take heart. You're not broken. You're not doomed to repeat the cycle forever. Self-inflicted suffering is not a life sentence, it's a habit. And habits can change. The next time you catch yourself poking holes in your own happiness, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what if I let this moment be enough? Because sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply allowing yourself to be happy. Why we sabotage happiness and how to stop. Have you ever been this close to feeling truly happy? And then, somehow, you did something that threw it all off? Maybe you said something you didn't mean. Maybe you procrastinated until an opportunity slipped away. Or maybe you picked a fight over something small, and then wondered later, why did I do that? If you've been there, you're not alone. It's a frustrating, almost mysterious cycle many of us go through, and it's not because we want to suffer. No one wakes up in the morning saying, today, I think I'll ruin my own joy. But still, it happens. The truth is, much of our self-sabotage lives in the shadows, in the quiet, hidden corners of our subconscious mind. We don't set out to hurt ourselves. Instead, old habits, fears, and deeply ingrained beliefs quietly pull the strings, guiding us back toward the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. And here's where it gets interesting. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, not necessarily happy. If peace feels unfamiliar, your brain might mistake it for danger. If chaos, drama, or constant problem solving is what you grew up with, your nervous system may interpret calm as suspicious. And so, without meaning to, you find yourself recreating the tension you've always known, simply because it feels normal. I remember talking to a friend who had finally found a loving, healthy relationship after years of toxic ones. Everything was good, too good, in her words. And so she began searching for flaws, picking at little imperfections, almost daring her partner to disappoint her. Eventually, the relationship ended, not because it was broken, but because peace felt too foreign to trust. Can you relate? Have you ever reached a moment in life where things were going well, but you felt a strange urge to shake things up? This is one of the ways we sabotage happiness. Sometimes it's small, putting off the workout you promised yourself, overspending when you're finally saving money. Other times, it's bigger, turning down an opportunity out of fear, or pushing away someone who genuinely cares. The psychology behind this is layered. Part of it comes from comfort zones. Your comfort zone isn't always comfortable, it's just what's familiar. And stepping outside of it, even toward joy, can feel terrifying. Another layer is control. When you're the one to cause the fall, at least you saw it coming. In some twisted way, self-sabotage gives us the illusion of power. If something's going to go wrong, I'll be the one to decide when. And then there's worthiness. Many of us carry an unspoken belief, I don't really deserve happiness. Maybe this belief was planted in childhood. Maybe it grew from repeated disappointments. Over time, it becomes so ingrained that when happiness does show up, we push it away, not because it's wrong, but because we don't feel worthy of keeping it. The problem is, these patterns are self-reinforcing. When you sabotage, you confirm your hidden fears. See, I knew it wouldn't last. And so the cycle continues. But here's the hopeful part. Cycles can be broken. The first step is awareness. You can't change what you won't admit. Start noticing your patterns without judgment. Ask yourself, do I create drama when life feels calm? Do I start doubting people when they get too close? Do I secretly believe happiness is temporary? The second step is learning to tolerate peace. That might sound strange. Who wouldn't want peace? But for many of us, peace feels like a void at first. It's quiet. There's no rush of adrenaline. It can feel boring. But boredom isn't bad. It's just the absence of crisis. Let yourself stay there long enough to see what life feels like when you're not bracing for impact. Third, rewrite your inner story. When you hear the old voice saying, "This won't last," or "You don't deserve this," respond with a new one. "It's okay for me to feel good. I can handle peace." These aren't just words. Over time, they retrain your nervous system to see joy as safe. And finally, practice receiving without guilt. You don't have to earn every good thing in your life by first suffering enough. Happiness is not a trophy handed out only to the flawless. It's a state we can choose to step into, gently, daily, even imperfectly. I've had to learn this myself. There was a time I thought being busy, stressed, and constantly working on something meant I was living fully. But deep down, I was just avoiding stillness, because in stillness, I had to face my own discomfort with being okay. The moment I realized that, I started letting life be good without immediately looking for the next fire to put out. And slowly, my mind began to trust peace. So, here's my question for you. What would happen if you stopped bracing for the fall? What if, instead of sabotaging the moment, you let yourself have it, fully, unapologetically? Because maybe happiness isn't something we find out there. Maybe it's what's left when we stop getting in our own way. If this resonates with you, remember, self-sabotage is a habit, not a destiny. You can notice it, question it, and slowly replace it with something gentler. It's not about forcing yourself to be happy all the time. It's about learning to stay present when happiness arrives, without rushing to close the door. So the next time you feel yourself pulling away from joy, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what if I let this be enough? Because the truth is, sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is allow ourselves to be happy. Why we undermine our own happiness, and how to stop. Imagine this. You've been working toward a goal for months, maybe even years. The day finally comes, you cross the finish line. That surge of joy, pride, and relief washes over you. But then, almost immediately, something in you shifts. You start thinking, what's next? Did I really do enough? Is this as good as it gets? And before you know it, the joy you fought so hard for begins to slip away. Sound familiar? If you're nodding right now, you're not alone. We all have these moments, times when we inexplicably undermine our own happiness. And it's not because we enjoy suffering. It's not because we are weak, lazy, or flawed. It's because there are hidden forces at play inside us, quiet, subconscious patterns that tug us back toward the familiar, even when the familiar is less than what we deserve. Let's be honest, most of us were never taught how to hold on to happiness. We were taught how to work hard, how to survive challenges, how to push through pain, but rarely how to stay in joy without sabotaging it. Why does this happen? One reason is comfort zones, and here's the tricky part. Your comfort zone isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it's full of stress, self-doubt, or chaos. But if that's what you've known for most of your life, your brain treats it as safe. So when happiness shows up, calm, steady, and unfamiliar, your mind might sound an alarm. This doesn't feel like home. And without realizing it, you might start creating problems just to return to what feels normal. Another reason is the illusion of control. If we are the ones to knock over the tower, at least we saw it fall. It can feel safer to cause the ending ourselves than to risk having it taken away unexpectedly. That's why some people will walk away from something good before it has the chance to hurt them. A preemptive strike on their own happiness. Then there's worthiness, or the lack of it. If deep down, you don't believe you truly deserve joy, you'll push it away the moment it arrives. This belief can be so quiet you barely notice it's there, yet it shapes how you react to good things. Think about it. How many times have you deflected a compliment? How often have you downplayed your achievements instead of celebrating them? These little moments can reveal big truths about how we see ourselves. I remember a time when I finished a big project I had poured my heart into. Everyone around me was celebrating. I should have been proud, but instead, my mind went straight to picking apart every small thing I could have done better. I robbed myself of the very joy I had been chasing for months. Looking back, I realize it wasn't humility. It was self-sabotage disguised as high standards. Here's the thing. Self-inflicted suffering often masquerades as productivity, humility, or even being realistic. But really, it's just fear in disguise. Fear of disappointment, fear of change, fear of losing what we love. So, how do we break free? Step 1. Awareness. We can't change what we refuse to see. Start noticing when you feel that urge to undo something good. Ask yourself, am I protecting myself from real danger, or just from the unfamiliar? Am I reacting to this moment, or to an old story I've been carrying? Step 2. Learning to hold joy. Happiness is like a muscle. If we are not used to it, it takes practice to strengthen. At first, staying in joy might feel awkward, even uncomfortable. But the more you allow yourself to experience it without rushing to the next problem, the more natural it becomes. Step 3. Challenge your beliefs about worthiness. When you catch yourself thinking, I don't deserve this, stop and ask, says who? Most of our unworthiness stories aren't truths. They're echoes from the past, picked up from family, culture, or painful experiences. You are allowed to outgrow them. Step 4. Release the need for control. Yes, endings and losses happen, but trying to sabotage happiness as a way to avoid pain only guarantees one thing. You lose the joy you have right now. The truth is, we can't control everything, but we can choose to fully receive what life is offering in this moment. I know these steps sound simple, but they're not always easy. Breaking free from self-sabotage is less about flipping a switch and more about gently retraining your mind. It's about catching yourself in the act, pausing, and making a different choice, again and again. Here's a small practice you can start today. The next time you notice something good happening, a compliment, a moment of peace, a small win, pause. Don't rush past it. Let yourself feel it fully. Even if it's just for 30 seconds, stay with it. This is how you teach your nervous system that happiness is safe. Because here's the truth. Life will always have its challenges. But if we keep sabotaging the good moments out of habit or fear, we end up living in a constant state of repair instead of truly living. So, imagine this. What if, the next time you reached a goal, you didn't immediately look for flaws? What if, the next time love showed up, you didn't push it away? What if, for once, you let yourself keep the joy you've earned? Happiness isn't something fragile that needs to be protected by preemptive disappointment. It's a living, breathing part of us that grows stronger the more we allow it to stay. And maybe, just maybe, the path to lasting peace isn't about chasing more, but about learning to stop tearing down what we've already built. The paradox of pleasure and pain. Why we sabotage happiness. Picture this. You're right on the edge of having it all. The job you've dreamed about is finally yours. Your relationship is in a good place. Your health feels steady. For a brief, shimmering moment, life clicks into place. And then, somehow, you mess it up. Not intentionally, of course, but you skip the important meeting. You snap at the person you love over something small. You overspend when you just got your finances in order. And suddenly, that fragile bubble of happiness bursts. Why do we do that? Why, when happiness is finally within reach, do we sometimes push it away? We are not talking about bad luck here. This isn't about fate stepping in to rain on your parade. This is something much more human, a subtle, often unconscious pattern of self-sabotage. And it's not rare. In fact, it's so common that if you've ever felt this way, you're in very large company. Here's the twist. It's not always malicious. In many cases, it's not even irrational when you look at it through the lens of human evolution. You see, our brains didn't evolve for us to be endlessly happy. They evolved to keep us alive. That means they are constantly scanning for danger, for problems to solve, for anything that could threaten our survival. In a world where life was unpredictable and safety was never guaranteed, this hyper-alertness was a gift. But in the modern world, that same survival wiring can become a trap. When things are calm, your brain, trained over thousands of years to expect danger, can start to feel uneasy. It thinks something's off. It's too quiet. And so it finds a way to stir the waters. Have you ever noticed this? You're in a healthy relationship, and suddenly, you start doubting your partner for no reason. You're finally managing your stress well, and then you overload your schedule until you're back on the edge of burnout. It's as if your mind believes that comfort is unsafe. There's another layer here, familiarity. If you've spent years, or even decades, living with some level of chaos, criticism, or instability, then peace can feel alien. Your nervous system has been conditioned to see tension as normal. So when life gets good, your body reacts like a traveler in a foreign land, unsure of the language, looking for an exit. And then there's control. When we sabotage ourselves, we at least get to choose when and how things fall apart. It's a twisted form of self-protection. If I'm the one to end it, it won't blindside me. The irony, of course, is that this false sense of control comes at the cost of the very happiness we crave. Let's not forget worthiness, or rather, the lack of it. If deep down you believe you don't deserve happiness, you will unconsciously push it away the moment it arrives. It's like holding a beautiful gift in your hands and thinking, this must be a mistake, before quietly returning it. I've been there. I remember finishing a project that had taken me months of effort, late nights, missed weekends, endless focus. When it was finally done and well received, instead of celebrating, I told myself it wasn't that big of a deal. I downplayed my own success. In hindsight, I realized I wasn't being humble. I was afraid to feel proud, because pride made me feel exposed. So, what can we do about it? How do we stop tearing down the good the moment it's built? The first step is noticing the pattern. Start by asking yourself, do I tend to create problems when things are going well? Does calm feel uncomfortable to me? Do I start doubting myself or others when happiness arrives? Awareness alone won't fix everything, but it will break the spell. It will let you see that not every problem you think you need to solve actually exists. The second step is learning to tolerate joy. Yes, tolerate. At first, joy might feel strange or even vulnerable, but the more you allow yourself to experience it without running, the more familiar it becomes. Just like a muscle, your capacity to hold happiness grows with use. The third step is rewriting your inner script. When the old voice says, "This won't last," answer it with, "Maybe it will." When it says, "I don't deserve this," respond with, "I'm allowed to receive good things." These small, intentional shifts can slowly rewire how your mind responds to pleasure. And the fourth step, perhaps the hardest, is letting go of control. We can't prevent all losses. We can't guarantee every relationship or opportunity will last forever. But we can choose not to preemptively destroy something just to avoid being hurt later. That's not control, that's self-denial. If you take nothing else from this, take this. The paradox of pleasure and pain is that the very instincts meant to keep us safe can also keep us small. They whisper, "Don't trust this. Don't get used to it. It's dangerous to relax." But in reality, the danger is in never letting yourself rest in the good that's already here. So next time you catch yourself on the verge of pushing away happiness, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what if I let this moment stay? Because maybe the goal isn't to chase happiness endlessly, but to learn how to hold it gently, without fear that it will slip away. And when you can do that, even for a few breaths at a time, you'll see that happiness is not a fragile guest. It's been waiting, all along, for you to stop shutting the door. The comfort zone of misery. Why we fear our own happiness. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to stay in a situation you know is making you miserable? A draining job, a toxic relationship, a habit that slowly chips away at your health. We tell ourselves, "I want to change. I want something better." But when the opportunity for that change appears, we freeze. We hesitate. Sometimes, we even sabotage it. It's strange, isn't it? You'd think our natural instinct would be to run toward joy, freedom, and peace. But for many of us, the truth is, misery can feel safer. I know that sounds absurd. Why would anyone choose pain over happiness? The answer is familiarity. Even the most negative patterns offer a strange kind of comfort. Not because they're good for us, but because they're predictable. We know the rules. We know how it feels. We know what to expect tomorrow. And our brains, wired to crave stability, interpret that familiarity as safety, even when it's killing us slowly. Think about it. A child who grows up in a home full of tension and criticism learns to see that tension as normal. Decades later, even if they consciously want peace, their subconscious might pull them toward relationships that feel just like home. Not because they like the conflict, but because it's the environment their nervous system recognizes. This is where past trauma and negative self-beliefs sneak in like invisible architects. They hand us a blueprint, a deeply ingrained plan for how life is supposed to feel. And if joy doesn't fit that blueprint, we reject it, sometimes without even realizing it. Here's the cruel irony. That blueprint isn't about what's best for us. It's about what's familiar. If your blueprint was written by years of struggle, chaos, or self-doubt, then peace will feel foreign. Stability might feel suspicious, and happiness might feel undeserved. It's almost like we are programmed to avoid joy, not because we can't handle it, but because joy demands something terrifying, vulnerability. When you allow yourself to feel good, you open the door to losing it. And for many people, avoiding joy feels safer than risking that loss. This is where something called imposter syndrome slips in, but not just at work or in success. I'm talking about imposter syndrome with happiness. It's that feeling of, this is too good for me. I must have tricked my way into this. I'm not ready. I don't belong here. So instead of leaning into joy, we quietly back away from it. I remember a close friend telling me about her first healthy relationship after years of heartbreak. She said, "It's weird. He's kind, he listens, he respects me, and I keep waiting for him to turn into someone else. Like I can't relax, because it doesn't match what I'm used to." That's the comfort zone of misery in action. The old pain feels more believable than the new peace. And here's the tricky part. Misery has rules we know by heart. We know how to react when someone criticizes us. We know how to navigate a bad boss, a toxic friendship, or self-doubt. But joy is unpredictable. It can grow, deepen, surprise us, or disappear without warning. That uncertainty is what makes it feel dangerous to a brain that craves control. Control, that's the other hook misery has in us. When we are in familiar pain, we feel like we understand the boundaries. We can anticipate the next blow. But in happiness, there's no warning system. It's open, fluid, vulnerable, and for some, that openness feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. So how do we break free from this comfort zone of misery? Step 1. See the pattern. Start noticing when you're resisting good things. Do you find yourself questioning kindness? Do you pick fights when things are going well? Do you downplay your achievements the moment you earn them? That awareness is the first crack in the old blueprint. Step 2. Sit with the unfamiliar. When something good happens, resist the urge to shrink from it. Stay there. Let it feel strange. Let it feel too much. Over time, your nervous system will learn that joy is not a threat. Step 3. Rewrite your worth. You are not the person your past trained you to be. Your worth isn't measured by how much you suffer or how well you survive hardship. You're allowed to receive without earning it in blood, sweat, or tears. Step 4. Practice small risks in happiness. Share good news without apologizing for it. Accept compliments without deflecting them. Say thank you instead of "it was nothing." These tiny acts teach your mind and body that joy can be safe, even when it's unpredictable. The comfort zone of misery is powerful, but it's not unbreakable. It thrives in the dark, in the unspoken patterns we never question. The moment you start to notice, truly notice, that you're pushing away the good, you begin to reclaim your power. And here's the truth. Happiness doesn't need you to be fearless. It just needs you to stop running from it. It doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. So maybe the next time life hands you something unexpectedly beautiful, a moment, a relationship, a win, you can choose to hold it, even if your hands tremble. Because yes, it might leave one day, but so will every bad thing you've ever endured. And if you can survive the loss of pain, you can survive the loss of joy. And maybe, just maybe, the more you let happiness in, the more it stops feeling like an intruder and starts feeling like home. The neuroscience of self-sabotage. Why our brains sometimes work against us. Have you ever wondered why, right when things are finally going well, you somehow find a way to derail it? Maybe you've just started a healthy habit, and suddenly you skip just one day that turns into weeks. Or you're in a loving relationship, and you start overthinking, picking at small flaws until they grow into mountains. It's tempting to think this is just a lack of willpower, but the truth is far more fascinating, and a little unsettling. Your brain, in many ways, is wired to protect you from exactly the kind of peace and stability you say you want. Let's start with two of the key players, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is your built-in alarm system. Its job is threat detection, scanning every conversation, every expression, every sound for danger. And it's ancient. Evolution designed it to keep you alive when rustling in the bushes might have been a predator. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is like the wise planner of your brain. It's where logic, decision-making, and long-term thinking live. Here's the problem. When the amygdala senses a threat, real or imagined, it can override the prefrontal cortex in milliseconds. It's like having a fire alarm so sensitive it goes off when you make toast. Now, here's where self-sabotage sneaks in. To your amygdala, change, even positive change, can feel like a threat. If you've lived in chaos, your brain might interpret peace as suspicious. If you're used to disappointment, success might trigger alarm bells because it's unfamiliar territory. On a chemical level, two hormones play a starring role here, dopamine and cortisol. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical, but it's more like the motivation chemical. It's released when we anticipate a reward, and yes, we get it from good things like achievement, connection, and novelty. Cortisol, on the other hand, is the stress hormone. It's meant to help us survive short bursts of danger. But here's the twist. If you've lived in a high-stress environment for a long time, your body can actually become used to cortisol spikes. That means, without even realizing it, you might start seeking out stress, conflict, drama, deadlines, because it gives you a rush that mimics excitement. It's not healthy excitement, but your brain can confuse the two. This is why some people feel restless when life is calm. Why they unconsciously stir up problems when things are going smoothly. It's not that they want to ruin things, it's that their nervous system has been trained to equate high alert with being alive. And this brings us to something called the negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors survived by noticing problems more than pleasures. Missing a potential danger could mean death. Missing a pretty sunset? Not so much. That bias still lives in us today. Even when life is going well, our brain instinctively scans for what might go wrong. A look from a coworker, a shift in someone's tone, an unexpected bill. We zoom in on the problem, sometimes even creating one if there isn't any, because it feels safer to anticipate pain than to be blindsided by it. Think about the last time you were truly happy. Was there a part of you waiting for the other shoe to drop? That's your negativity bias at work, an ancient survival instinct operating in a modern world where the threats aren't usually life or death, but our brains haven't gotten the memo. Here's the thing, this isn't about blaming ourselves for the way we are wired. It's about understanding it, because once you see the pattern, you can start to work with your brain instead of letting it run on autopilot. One way to retrain the brain is through pattern interruption. When you catch yourself scanning for danger in a moment of calm, pause. Name 3 things in your environment that are safe, steady, and good. It sounds simple, but it sends a signal to the amygdala that it's okay to stand down. Another is dopamine redirection. If your brain craves the rush of cortisol, give it a healthier thrill. Try learning a skill that challenges you, or taking a small, positive risk, something that spikes dopamine without draining your long-term well-being. And then there's gratitude, not as a cliche, but as a neural rewiring tool. When practiced consistently, gratitude activates parts of the brain linked to long-term happiness and dampens the amygdala's reactivity. Over time, this can make peace feel less like a threat and more like home. I've seen this shift happen in real life. A friend of mine, raised in a turbulent household, used to panic when her life felt too easy. She'd pick fights with her partner or overcommit to stressful projects just to feel normal again. But after months of consciously sitting in moments of calm, and even journaling about how uncomfortable that calm felt, she noticed the panic starting to fade. Peace became less foreign, more natural. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was actually living. The truth is, self-sabotage isn't a moral failing. It's a survival strategy that's outlived its usefulness. Your brain is doing its best with outdated instructions. The good news? Those instructions can be updated. It takes awareness. It takes patience. And it takes a willingness to let go of the rush that chaos brings, so you can learn to recognize and trust the quieter rhythms of real happiness. So the next time you catch yourself derailing something good, don't rush into shame. Instead, pause and ask, is this really a problem? Or is my brain just looking for one? Because once you can tell the difference, you're not just breaking the cycle of self-sabotage, you're rewriting the script your brain has been following for years. And that's when lasting change becomes possible. Unmasking the inner critic and fear, why we push happiness away. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the loudest voice holding you back isn't out there in the world? It's in your own head? That quiet whisper, or sometimes a roar, that says, "You're not ready. You don't deserve this. Something's going to go wrong, just wait." That's your inner critic, and it's not some random bad habit. It's a carefully constructed voice, built over years, often starting in childhood, shaped by experiences, failures, and the way we were spoken to by others. And here's the strange part. Even though it hurts us, part of us listens to it because it feels familiar. Now, the inner critic isn't just mean for the sake of it. In its own twisted way, it thinks it's protecting us. If you don't try, you can't fail. If you don't get too happy, you won't be devastated when happiness leaves. It's a shield, but it's a shield that also blocks out the sunlight. Let's talk about one of the critic's favorite weapons, limiting beliefs. These are the quiet rules we've written for ourselves without realizing it. Maybe yours sounds like, "I'm just not the kind of person who can be financially successful." Or, "People like me never get a lasting relationship." The problem is, when you carry these beliefs around, you start living as if they're true. You take fewer chances. You accept less than you deserve. And slowly, without noticing, you build a life that matches the limits you've imagined. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable. A lot of people aren't just afraid of failure. They're afraid of success. Because success changes things. Happiness changes things. It can feel like stepping into an entirely new landscape, one where you don't know the rules. If you've spent most of your life surviving, suddenly thriving can feel unsafe. It's like climbing a mountain and realizing you have no idea how to live at the top. There's also something psychologists call loss aversion, the fear of losing what we've gained. Sometimes, the moment we get what we've always wanted, our mind whispers, "This won't last. It'll be taken from you." And so, instead of enjoying it, we start to distance ourselves from it, almost preemptively pushing it away. Because if we leave first, it won't hurt as much when it leaves us. It's like breaking up with happiness before it breaks up with us. I remember talking to a friend who had finally found a loving, healthy relationship after years of toxic ones. She told me, "Every time he's kind to me, I feel this rush of joy, and then almost immediately, this wave of panic. Like it's too good. Like something bad is about to happen." She wasn't broken. She wasn't ungrateful. She was just experiencing what so many of us do, the brain treating joy like a dangerous unknown. So, what do we do about it? How do we quiet the critic, dismantle the limiting beliefs, and learn to live with the strange newness of happiness? The first step is awareness. You can't fight what you can't see. Start noticing the moments when that critical voice pipes up. Write them down. Don't argue with them yet, just catch them in the act. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. The second step is questioning the narrative. When your inner critic says, "You're going to mess this up," ask yourself, is that a fact or is it a fear? When it says, "People like me don't get to be this happy," counter with, "Says who?" You're not trying to bully the critic into silence. You're showing it that you're capable of making your own judgments now. Third, practice receiving without bracing. This is harder than it sounds. When something good happens, instead of immediately scanning for the catch, breathe. Let it in. You might feel exposed or even scared. That's okay. It's just your nervous system adjusting to a reality where joy is allowed to stay. And here's the truth. The inner critic will probably never disappear completely. It's part of you, but it doesn't have to be in charge. Over time, you can learn to hear its warnings, thank it for its concern, and still move toward the life you want. Because here's the most radical thing of all. Happiness isn't something you have to earn by proving your worthiness. It's something you're allowed to have simply because you're alive. And the moment you stop treating joy like a fragile guest who might leave at any second, and start treating it like a permanent resident in your life, that's when everything begins to shift. So, the next time you catch yourself shrinking back just as something good enters your life, ask yourself, am I protecting myself? Or am I protecting my fear? And if it's the second one, maybe, just maybe, it's time to let the sunlight in. Rewriting your happiness script. How to stop self-sabotaging your joy. You know that moment when life is finally starting to feel good? You've been working towards something, the pieces are falling into place, and you almost don't trust it. Instead of relaxing into it, you start looking for the cracks. You worry. You overthink. You find ways to pull yourself back down to a familiar place. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And the good news? Patterns can be rewritten. The first step is simple, but not always easy. Awareness without judgment. You can't change what you don't see. So for now, don't try to fix it, just watch. Notice the moments when you tense up in response to something good. Notice when you make excuses to delay something you've been wanting. Notice when you talk yourself out of a risk that could move you forward. It's like being a detective in your own mind. Not to punish yourself, but to understand the script you've been running on. Here's the thing about that script. Most of it wasn't written by you. It's been shaped by your childhood, your relationships, your failures, your fears. Maybe someone told you early on, don't get your hopes up. Or maybe you learned that being too happy made you vulnerable. So now, without even realizing it, your brain tries to keep you safe by keeping you small. Once you've started noticing these patterns, the next step is something I call reparenting your inner critic. Think of that voice inside your head, the one that says, you can't handle this or this will end badly. What if, instead of obeying it or fighting it, you responded to it like a kind but firm parent would to a scared child? You don't yell at it, you don't mock it, you listen, you understand, but you also remind it, we are safe now. I can handle this. You don't have to protect me like that anymore. This isn't just positive thinking. Neuroscience tells us that the brain can be rewired through repetition. And one of the simplest ways to start that rewiring is with small, achievable goals. When you set the bar too high, your brain sees it as a threat. But small wins, tiny actions you follow through on, send a powerful message to your nervous system. We can succeed. We can trust ourselves. That's why celebrating minor victories matters so much. We are not talking about throwing a party every time you answer an email, but consciously acknowledging progress. Finished that workout you didn't feel like doing? Take a second to feel proud. Had a tough conversation you've been avoiding? Give yourself credit for showing up. Every time you do this, you're building a new association in your mind. Effort leads to reward, not disaster. And here's where the deeper shift happens, through self-compassion. A lot of us think we can bully ourselves into growth. We believe that if we are just hard enough on ourselves, we'll finally get it together. But shame doesn't create lasting change. Compassion does. It's the difference between saying, "You messed up again, you're hopeless," and saying, "Okay, you slipped. Let's try again tomorrow." The tendency to self-sabotage isn't a personal flaw, it's human. Our brains evolved to prioritize safety over happiness, and sometimes that means we cling to old fears even when they hurt us. But the beautiful part is, we are not just products of our wiring. We are also the authors of our next chapter. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, notice one moment each day where you'd normally shrink back and choose differently. It doesn't have to be huge. Send the application. Take the compliment without downplaying it. Say yes to the invitation. And every time you do, remember this. You are allowed to feel good. You are allowed to be at peace. You don't have to earn joy by proving your worthiness first. The old script will try to pull you back. That's normal. But you have a pen in your hand now. And you can start writing a version of your life where happiness isn't a fleeting guest. It's a permanent resident. Because while fear might be instinctive, peace is always a choice. And that choice is yours to make, starting today.